Testosterone with Jay Campbell. Along with the 5 most important questions you all have on testosterone, we will also be discussing testosterone replacement therapy.
So I'm obviously a pro, testosterone optimization therapy to actually use the bioidentical hormone, but obviously there's also ways to do this naturally.
Our environment.
We are now in an environment that is so catastrophically contaminated that very few men around the world even have optimal levels. I mean, even normal levels. I mean, most people are suffering from deficiency and don't know it.
And signals of low T.
The stereotypical thing is like, oh, I can't get a boner, or, I have no sex drive or something like that. But the reality is it's a lack.
Let's do this. Welcome to the Subject Matter Experts Show. Everybody, I am currently talking to Jay Campbell of jcampbell.com. And he's got, I'm just going to throw out his places where you can find this entertaining man. His Instagram is jcampbell333 at Instagram. And just before we get started, Jay, do you have anywhere else that people can reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is obviously, you just mentioned it, jcampbell.com. But for the listeners on this, if they want, to engage or interact with my content, it's jcampbell.com/free books. And they can get a copy of the Testosterone Optimization Therapy Bible, one of my fat loss books, which is very highly rated on Amazon, which is the Metabolic Blowtorch Diet, a book on raising your consciousness, and then 2 chapters of my newest book, which is #1 right now on Amazon in like 6 categories, which is Optimize Your Health with Therapeutic Peptides.
Nice. And I'm excited to talk to you about testosterone, but I did notice that your newest book is about peptides. And I want to just touch on that first. I'm sure it is a little bit related, but peptides are something that a lot of people are getting into, both from the medical profession and even just from like the health influencer standpoint. And just wanted to go, could you elaborate a little bit on peptides? Just give us the rundown. I know you wrote a whole book, so we could go on forever about it. But if you were to just tell somebody on the street about peptides, what would be important for them to know?
Yeah, so very high level is basically, people look at medicine today, allopathic, I call it sick care or illness medicine. And what that treats is basically symptoms, right? Like doctors give drugs that are Band-Aids to basically medicate for symptoms, whereas peptides actually treat the fundamental root cause of whatever your issue is, right? So it's like if you torn a ligament in your leg or in your knee or your elbow or something like that, you can actually take therapeutic peptides to address the actual origin of the injury and to start and strengthen and accelerate the healing of the actual quote unquote tear, sprain, or strain. So they basically, again, like I said, represent a fundamental paradigm shift from what medicine is now with, allopathic, again, sick care or illness medicine to what I call quantum healing, right? Because peptides can, again, literally allow the body to aid in its natural repairing.
Quantum. I did check out your stuff. You were speaking a lot about, let's call it that side of reality. And so peptides, as I understand it, are the building blocks for proteins, right? Which do
fractionated proteins, exactly. Yep.
Numerous things in the body. And then when you're mentioning quantum, so is that like you can direct it somehow with your state of being?
Absolutely. So if you are familiar with my work, I'm similar to you. I mean, I don't even care about physical health much anymore. I mean, I do. I mean, I'm obviously the representation, but I'm all about consciousness and frequency and vibration and all of that stuff. So without question, if you are dialed in, physically from a standpoint of like, you have the tenets, your diet, your nutrition, your sleep, you're exercising and all that stuff, and then you want to start using peptides, there's absolutely no doubt about it that you can direct your cells, through basically your through bioluminescence, your energetic frequency to accelerate whatever it is that you're attempting to use the peptides for. So, right, you want to boost cognition, you can do that, right? You want to accelerate healing, which we already talked about with BPC 157, TB 500, you can do that. If you want to enhance fat loss or muscle gain with certain, GH growth hormone agonist peptides, you can do that. Pretty much every, organ system or biological system and cell pathway can be optimized with peptides.
And being aligned with it internally. with your
100%.
being is
Yes,
important.
100%. There's even a peptide now that I'm really big on. I talk a lot about called testosterone. It's really technically a small molecule, but it enhances brain-derived neurotropic factor, which is the obviously pathway to source, right? It's like the connection frequency. So if you're, in the free state or the flow state, I would say, of connected to BDNF, connected to the source frequency, you can create in massive amounts abundantly versus not being, optimized with your BDNF. And again, I talk a lot about this when I lecture or when I speak or in my courses and stuff like that. But it's difficult to generate BDNF when you are a inflamed, call them a human dumpster fire as a person, right? When your nutrition's poor, you don't sleep well, you're doing too much alcohol, too much sugar, all those things. You can't really generate BDNF. But you can when you're optimized in the other pathways, and then you use these, amazing peptides or small molecules to enhance the process.
BDNF. The first time, so I read a book about that 15 years ago. I used to own gyms. And so I remember there was a study where they took school children and had them exercise before class, and their BDNF increased dramatically as a result of that. And then that was like one of the foundations of the message of why exercising was good when I owned the gyms.
Yeah, I mean, fasting is probably your best natural pathway to enhance BDNF, but testosterone is definitely now the number one peptide to do it. Nicotine gum does it. There's a lot of different serotonergic, dopaminergic, synaptic pathways that you can enhance it, through, call it drugs or molecular pathways that you can alter through certain supplements or, again, fasting and stuff like that. But like BDNF is like the newest, it's kind of a rage in that it really can be modified through certain peptides.
Talk to me about so you have a ebook or maybe a physical book on testosterone optimization therapy, and you have a course, right?
Yes. Yes.
So as we get into that, I definitely want to hear more about how people can find out more about those resources and what you have in them. But first question, just a general question for those
Sure.
those people. Like, I'm sure you can answer this with your eyes closed and eyes tied behind your back and drowning. But what is testosterone and how does it work in the body?
Yeah. So I mean, basically, testosterone is a hormone, a signaling hormone that is the primary sex differentiator, right? So the only difference between men and women is that men have in utero more testosterone development or more testosterone as a hormone produced. And that's why, like, to not get crazy, but go into all of this like transgender and trans stuff that's going on in the world now today. Basically, if you want to make a woman a man, you just give her more testosterone, to make it very, very simplified. So, I mean, again, it's a primary sex differentiating hormone, but obviously it also is responsible for, masculine energy, vigor. There's so many things that testosterone does. Again, it increases dopamine signaling, it enhances cognition. I mean, there's just a million different things that testosterone does as a hormone. And as you guys are fully aware, we are now in an environment that is so catastrophically contaminated that very few men around the world even have optimal levels. I mean, even normal levels. I mean, most people are suffering from deficiency and don't know it. And so I think it's, even though I don't talk about it as much anymore, and my book is from 2000. I wrote the first one in 2015, the second one in 2018. It's never been more important to understand the importance of optimizing men's and actually women's testosterone levels in this contaminated world that we live in.
Definitely contaminated, and we're battling against it. So you're speaking of deficiency. So what are the common problems for low testosterone? I'm really interested in more about, is that a problem for women as well?
It is. It's a massive problem so I talk about this a lot. I have a podcast on Wednesday nights that's called the Health Optimization Roundtable, and it's three of the best doctors in the world and myself, kind of the host. And we bring on other subject matter experts, but we talk about this. It's an unrecognized global epidemic, okay? There's a study called the Hebrew University study that the results came out in 2011, of course, suppressed by the mainstream. But they did a 40-year, 7 continents, so the whole planet, well, the 7 continents that we admit, of all, like 70,000 men were between all 7 continents, and they theorized that by the year 2032, the male species would be extinct because fertility was dropping at rates that were unfathomable, but basically not stoppable, again, from the modernization, from the contamination, from endocrine disrupting chemicals, from plastics and phthalates and all these things that are destroying our endocrine systems. And so no one's talking about this, but now you look around and we look in our environment and we see, weak men. We see men who have no ability to even have sex. I mean, I think I saw a statistic the other day that 50% of men in the United States and Canada last year under the age of 30 didn't have sex one time. Right now, a lot of this has to do with the fact that they don't have a sex drive because their testosterone levels are so low. They're free.
Wait,
testosterone.
Can you repeat that?
Yes.
That almost just went right.
It's
right
true.
through me.
It's true. 50% of men in North America under the age of 30, and by the way, this is the last 2 years, so this was in 2021 and 2022, did not have sex one time due to, it's theorized that, video games replace it. They get their dopamine highs or fixes from other things, jerking off, whatever, but did not have sex literally one time. 50% of all men under the age of 30, which is unheard of, right, to past generations, people like me. I'm 52, I'm a Gen Xer. I think you're probably a Gen Xer, probably too. The reality is that everything is changing. Culturally, paradigms are changing. Again, video games, technology, doing things to this. But ultimately, the reason that is because men have such low natural levels of both total and free testosterone. And again, it's environmental. It's happening in utero. The studies, the endocrine disrupting chemical stuff that's out there that they've known about, the EPA and all the environmental companies who suppress this information. They've known about the in utero contamination since the late 90s, early 2000s, and they don't talk about this. But all you have to do is understand that if you're a man or a woman, and we can talk about women too, but if you were born in the 90s or the early 2000s, you were contaminated in utero from the environment. So all of those people have lower levels of natural and free testosterone. They have weaker bones. It's insane when you start looking at the data sets. But again, all of this is covered up by the mainstream. They don't talk about this. I talk about this, and the people that I'm connected with talk about this. And there's plenty of research. Dr. Anthony J, wrote the book Estrogeneration. That's an amazing guy. If you want me to introduce you guys to him, he would be a great interview. He talks about this kind of stuff. But the world is contaminated. And we now have young people, men and women today, who don't have sex, who have no, hormone levels to even register. They have no desire, to want to have sex or to procreate or, to chase a woman or to chase a guy. It's just the facts of where we're at in modern day.
So I'm sure that you've got ways to optimize this, judging by the names of your course, Testosterone Optimization Therapy.
Yes.
So what are the best ways to optimize testosterone levels, in your opinion? Many of you know that I used to own gyms in downtown LA for about 10 years. So I've seen people on their health and wellness journeys for many years at a time. And by far, the biggest impact that I've seen any of them make has been on the ULT lifestyle. This program allows one's bodies to be functional in that it nourishes the cells, it helps facilitate the detoxification of the garbage that gets built up, and it also has the components for your body to rebuild itself. I've seen my clients make more change in 6 to 7 months than they did in 6 to 7 years working out in my high intensity functional fitness gyms. Check out the description of this show for $120 off your first month.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm obviously a pro, testosterone optimization therapy to actually use the bioidentical hormone, but obviously there's also ways to do this naturally. And I always recommend and advocate to use natural means, to exhaust all natural means before you seek, actual therapeutic testosterone. And in truth be told, again, some of the physicians I work with, it takes a very rare person today, both genetically, epigenetically, and then also just from a drive and determination and discipline standpoint, to actually do this, past the age of 40 and to be able to do it, naturally. Because again, as you guys know, if you live in New York City, Los Angeles, Miami, Atlanta, Houston, any of these giant urban, coastal population areas, you are being bombarded 24/7, from the blue light, from the Wi-Fi routers, from the 5G towers, from the food, from the air, from the plastics. I mean, it is almost inescapable, right? So like if you are doing everything natural, you sleep 6 to 8 hours of deep restorative sleep every night, you eat well, you avoid alcohol, you avoid sugar, you live what I call insulin controlled. You're eating enough protein. You obviously are doing, hopefully, resistance training, which is training with weights or some form of bone-bearing exercise combined with cardiovascular exercise. The percentage of people who can maintain what I would call not normal, because I hate saying normal, what does that mean? But an optimal level of natural testosterone production is less than 10% of people, right? Mm-hmm. And that's under 40, right?
You really have to be on it.
Yeah, when you go from 40 to 50, it's less than 2%. And when you're above 50, forget it. Like, and here's the problem, guys. Like, the problem is the lack of awareness. There are still billions, I mean that, the B word, of people who have no earthly idea that they're suffering from a hormonal deficiency. This runs across both men and women. And then if they're lucky enough to discover someone like me or you or people that talk about this stuff, then what do? Right? Because the average doctor has no formal schooling in this. They do not teach endocrine optimization in medical school. This is from an experiential body of work and practice. So you have to find and seek out a physician that knows how to hormonally optimize you. And I'll be honest with you, the average doctor who attempts to prescribe hormones to their patients has absolutely no idea what they're doing. And if they work with you, they're going to make you worse than you started with them. And that's literally like 80% of people who have gone down the path of hormonal optimization and fail, which is impossible when I hear that. But I mean, again, if you've done it wrong or had a doctor who didn't know what they were doing, of course you will fail. And then they have a bad vibe, bad experience. They go out and tell their friends. They go out on websites. They report it in Reddit and all these other, absurd sites and say, oh, it doesn't work. TRT doesn't work. Testosterone optimization therapy doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. And it's just not true. But if that's your experience, then of course you're going to say that. And again, literally millions of people have had such a poor experience that is out there. There's a website called testosteroneaddiction.com that you can go and you can read the user case studies and testimonies of very intelligent people, well-to-do, well-meaning people who have been what I call quacked into oblivion by physicians who don't know what they're doing.
Okay, so if physicians don't know what they're doing, then what's the answer for people? Because it sounds like you're promoting hormone therapy, but you're saying that the doctors aren't the people.
Well, so, I mean, again, self-awareness, right? Like, number one, get lab work done, right? Like, if you're a 25-year-old male or female, it is your absolute your diligent duty to seek out what your lab panels are. Like I like to say, you need to become the proactive scientist of your own health, right? Because there's nobody out there, your family doctor, your PPO or HMO physician, they don't care. They're under insurance standards every day. They got to see 40 patients, in an 8-hour window. Like they're not looking over your medical records to see if you have an issue. So you have to become the proactive scientist and get this lab work done. And anyone can do it. You can go to, place that I represent is called Private MD Labs, and I have an affiliate, relationship with those guys. But I mean, you can get your labs done, and then you can just go on YouTube if you're clueless on how to read biomarkers and just like say, hey, how do I read a laboratory report, right? Or again, you can watch my videos, or you can purchase my book or purchase my course, and I go through all of this stuff. But the reality is that it becomes incumbent upon the individual to truly take measures and matters into their own hand. And then once you do, you will find the physicians that know how to do this. And there are thankfully enough of them that, you can do this right. And, right now I'm probably one of the great conduits on the planet for people that go down this path or have had these horrible experiences. They eventually end up getting to me or some of my coaches or into my groups or whatever and say, hey, can you recommend a physician that can do this right? I've been through 6 doctors, or I've been through 8 doctors, or I've been through 4 doctors, and this is my experience. So, thankfully there are enough people out there that do advise people on where to go and how to get this done correctly.
What would be interesting to people, because you're talking about everything that, you're saying things could go wrong if you do it with a doctor that doesn't know what they're doing, or somebody, that doesn't, they're not doing lab work. So what are the actual risks and side effects of taking testosterone supplementation and maybe things going wrong?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, first off, let's just go back a little bit because you asked me a question I never really answered just to get back to it. But the symptoms of a testosterone deficiency, so everyone knows, is not what they think it is. It's like the stereotypical thing is like, oh, I can't get a boner, or I have no sex drive or something like that. But the reality is it's a lack of cognition. So a testosterone deficiency represents in serious brain fog in both men and women. I mean, when women have hormone, because you asked that question, when women have these hormonal deficiencies as they get older, it's the same thing. So testosterone, works in so many different biological systems and organ systems that when you have a deficiency, you do not have high energy, right? So the lack of energy leads to a lack of cognition, very, very depressive brain fog. 9 times out of 10, when a man, it's usually a man, because the wife is pushing him to go to the doctor. When they go to the doctor to represent or report these symptoms, the doctor, instead of testing for testosterone or looking at their lab panels, will just give them an SSRI, which, as you guys know, is a brain or mood altering medication, combined with what is called a PD5 inhibitor, which is a Viagra, Cialis, Levitra, something to enhance erectile quality or strength, when, again, Band-Aids not treating the root cause, which is a testosterone deficiency. So to understanding all that, to going back to to answer your question, which is, how do we look at this? What goes wrong? What are the side effects? I mean, thankfully, there really aren't anything really, really bad, even if you get screwed up. But the side effects would be mood imbalances, poor sleep, massive water retention from like an improper dose, just basically just an imbalance. You don't feel good. You go from like high energy to like not low energy, but just like a feeling of like I'm not balanced, I'm not centered. But when this is done right, and I tell people this all the time, there are no side effects. I mean, the side effects would be improved mood, improved cognition, better well-being, obviously better sexual function, better strength and endurance in the gym, way deeper sleep, and then, of course, enhanced fat loss, because testosterone itself is lipolytic, which means it enhances resting metabolic rate, thermogenesis, all the things that increase and improve fat loss. So when a person has optimal levels of testosterone, whether it's naturally or it's through therapy, their life is a whole lot better than when not.
Is there any problems that you foresee of somebody kind of overdoing it with a natural route as opposed to going to get blood work and getting bioidentical hormone therapy? Because I see, like you said, there's horror stories about testosterone therapy. And I'm not sure if you're just talking about TRT or if there's other hormones people are getting in. But then what I see is people are just overloading with some of these herbs and or practices. Just wanted to get your take on, is there benefit to go the sort of not doctor, but I don't want to, is pharmaceutical the right word for what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
I mean, I think you're asking an amazing question, and I can definitely pick it up from what you're doing, and I
All right.
applaud you for saying it. And look, man, if you guys don't know me, I have no filter. I don't care who I offend. The average person out online, quote unquote, subject matter experts talking about this are full of shit. If they're out there promoting, Tonkat Ali or testosterone or any of these like natural supplements that supposedly, according to their bullshit research that they'll put out there, raise testosterone or raise free testosterone. I have, again, probably the world's #1 researcher when it comes to all of this stuff. Like, I don't say that, lightly. I say that due to my credibility. I mean, my book has 1,300 scientific research studies in it. It's from 2018. We wrote the book in 2017. I've looked at all the research. There is nothing natural that will enhance or optimize a person's levels of testosterone beyond a transient measurability, which means that if you see any kind of increase in free or total testosterone from whatever this adaptogen supplement, whatever it is, it's not lasting, right? So these people that sell these supplements, and again, I won't name names, but if you guys ask me to, I have no problem naming names, because some of these people have big names and big brands, and they're shit-talking scam artists who are no better than most supplement, people who are selling bogus, selling hope and a dream and smoke and mirrors at the end of the day. But if we want to go over to the quantum side of things, as you guys know, the placebo effect is very real, right? So if you believe in something so much, and then you obviously live the lifestyle around achieving that desire or that ultimate feeling that, hey, I can do this, then yeah, you'll see results. But there's nothing on planet Earth that is going to optimize a male or female's testosterone levels better than the bioidentical testosterone molecule, right? Which, if we want to get into delivery systems, there are multiple. Most of the delivery systems that are offered by physicians are ineffective at best, and harmful at worst, right? Like, I'll talk about one harmful one. One is pellets. Physicians literally cut you open in the side of your hip or your upper gluteal fat pad in the upper part of the back or wherever they want to do it, and they insert testosterone pellets, which are supposed to absorb / cleave molecularly in a certain amount of time. But the issue is, and this is with everyone, we're all biochemically unique. We're all N of one, right? So like, if you take pellets and I take pellets raw, I'm going to break them down faster than you will, or you may break them down faster than me. There's no uniform rate that they break down. So how are you going to put these in a person and say, oh, come back in 8 weeks or 10 weeks or 12 weeks and I'll put more in when you need them? It doesn't work that way. So those things definitely do, quote unquote, harm people, because at the rate and speed that they break down in the body, you may, if you're what is called a hyper excreter, you may in 3 weeks need more. And the physician's not allowed to give you any more because technically, according to their, math or whatever, the chart, from the manufacturer of the pellets, oh, you can't get new ones until 6 or 8 weeks from now. And so then that person actually hormonally suffers a massive decline because its body is relying on the pellet and it doesn't have any. So, ultimately, to go, a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole, the delivery systems that work in tried and true fashion from a scientific angle are injectable and transdermal, which is like a cream, which men place on the base of their scrotum. This is how I take therapeutic testosterone. But those two delivery systems for men are the best. And for women, same thing. But women also have now oral capsules that also compound and combine, other hormones like estradiol, which is estrogen, and potentially progesterone to enhance women's sleep. Perimenopausal and postmenopausal women usually use progesterone because it helps them sleep when they're having hot flashes. So, those are essentially the best or ultimate forms of delivery if you're going to take therapeutic hormones for both men and women. But, to the question, ultimately, you asked, can you overdo it? Yes, you can. You can take these bullshit natural, quote unquote, adaptogen supplements, testosterone, all these different things and overload them. And dude, I have talked to hundreds of people that I've personally or privately consulted with, and then thousands if you talk about people I've corresponded with on the internet who've had hair loss, feelings of libidos crashing. I mean, there's no regulation, as you know, in the supplement industry, right? So like, these people could be putting God knows what in some of these formulations. And these people are obviously buying the smoke and mirrors, the hype of this is going to do this, this is going to do this, it's going to jack your libido through the roof, it's going to increase your total testosterone. And there's no way to verify this. So it's like, again, you're just paying the money, buying the stuff over the counter, listening to the guru or the subject matter expert say it's going to happen. And most of the times, the hype does not live up to the substance.
And then they have the placebo effect as insurance. And that placebo effect is real. When I used I used to own gyms, and I went through the whole thing: veganism, vegetarian, carnivore, keto, paleo. No matter what diet I recommended to people, I noticed that they all got results. And I was like, is the diet even, I mean, I'm sure it matters, but I realized that the placebo effect is actually doing more than a change in diet.
So I'm about to release a book, which will be my absolute masterpiece book, which is called 30 Days to Shreds. It sounds like a bro book, but it's actually a scientific manual on how to lose the most body fat possible in 30 days or less in the context of health and longevity. So you're not doing anything that's going to put your physical body at risk, and you're going to be able to use the most advanced tips, tools, tactics of peptides, bioregulators. We haven't even talked about bioregulators. We should mention them because you want to really get into quantum healing. We can talk about bioregulators, but basically how to use the most elite cutting edge stuff that's out there and drop your body fat as maximal as possible in 30 days, again, without hurting yourself or causing any kind of long-term damage, again, in the health context of health and longevity. And I can definitely tell you that it is possible to manifest, any reality or outcome that you want if you have the desire, and obviously you have, the ability to take action. I know you know this, but words, thoughts, and actions, right? So it's like, make your words conscious, make your thoughts focused, and make your actions massively lovingly and intentional, and you can create any kind of reality. And so, you obviously are a high conscious resonant dude. And so when you were working with all these people in these various different things, you were teaching them the wavelength, let's just call it the quantum energy, the vibration level necessary to get results. And when I talk about diets nowadays, because like you said, there's so many different ones, right? And there's a million different ways to skin a cat, but I talk about metabolic flexibility and adaptability, right? So if you want to eat keto or carnivore or low carb, or if it fits your macros, or, insert anything, everything has got to be relative to your energetic demand, right? What do you do for exercise? Are you a mountain climber, an endurance athlete, a bodybuilder, just a person that walks up hills on the weekends? I mean, all of that is relative to the energetic demand that you place on your physical avatar body. And so based on that, then you know how to fuel your body nutritionally after, right? So again, if you're a bodybuilder and you want to optimize a bodybuilder physique and refill your muscle glycogen stores, you need carbs. It's simple as that. Yeah, you can argue and say, oh, bro, there's keto guys that do bodybuilding and there's vegan guys that do bodybuilding and they don't do carbs. Of course, there's outliers, right? But at the end of the day, if you want to build really strong muscles, you have to fill your body back up with muscle glycogen. And you get that easiest way biochemically from carbohydrates. Just as if you're an ultra endurance athlete and you don't need carbs for fuel and you can literally rely on fats from ketones, then be a keto guy or a keto bro or a carnivore, right? So, I mean, everything is relevant to the energetic demand that you place on your body. So I always just tell people, like, I don't care what diet you do, just make sure you remain metabolically flexible.
The flexibility aspect I like, because if you're just one thing, that's similar to only being able to run marathons, but you can't lift the suitcase off the ground.
Yeah, and nobody is like that, right? Like almost everybody today has variability in their training, variability in their lifestyle demands. So just keep it all available. I mean, look, it's really simple, to make it very simple for people. I know this podcast is awesome because we're all over the place, but if you just didn't eat carbohydrates, right? If you're a male or woman, I don't care what condition you're at, but if you just don't eat carbohydrates after 6 p.m. in the day, ever, like your carbs, and I'm not talking about like eating green leafy, vegetables or kale or spinach or any of that stuff, but if you just eat no starches after 6 p.m. in the day, every day of your life, there's no way that you will be fat. It's impossible. The average person consumes the majority of their carbohydrates at night, right? Men have this energetic demand where it's like me hungry, me out in the field all day, searching for whatever, or bringing home the bacon, and now I got to eat, and even women, they drink 2 glasses of wine at night, or they, eat 2 slices of pie with fruit or whatever it is. It's social, it's emotional. It's like the feeling, the well-being of like, oh, I associate feeling well when I eat these carbohydrates or whatever it is, this emotional type eating. But if you just shut that down, right, and you don't eat carbs after 6 o'clock, and you attempt to, go by the cycles of the sun, where you eat only when the sun is up and you don't eat, when the sun goes down. I mean, it's impossible metabolically for you to be fat. You just can't do it. I mean, again, most people just eat the majority of their food, their calories they consume at night. And it's terrible for their metabolic health. It's terrible for sleep. I know so many guys, that eat 1 meal a day, right? The OMAD. And it's like they eat 2,500 calories at 9 o'clock at night and go to bed at 10:30. It's like, dude, that's not going to work. Your body is not designed to digest all that food, protein, fats, and carbs while you're laying in your bed at 10:30 at night, attempting to sleep.
So what's the function that turns carbohydrates after the sun goes down into fat?
I mean, it's just an overconsumption of, basically it's the insulin response, right? So if you eat too much starchy carbohydrates, now again, there's obviously outlaying factors here. If you're a very muscular person and you're taking therapeutic testosterone and growth hormone and other fat burning peptides, you're going to have a more robust metabolism. You're going to have a better fat burning internally. So it's not going to affect as much. But if you're just a normal person and you're eating that food with that amount of carbohydrates after, considering dark, I mean, you are basically increasing your body's insulin response. And that the insulin response, if you are not extremely adaptive, you don't have a lot of muscle, you're not fit, you're not like, very, energetically active, the body just takes that insulin and shuttles the excess calories of the sugar and, if you're technically eating fat with it, to fat cells. And then the fat cells store the fat, sadly, in the areas that you least want it to be shown, which is in men in the belly and the love handles, and in women in the hips, glutes, and thighs. Right? Because in those areas, we have the most resistant cells because we get the very least amount of blood flow to those areas. Everything is related to blood flow, right? In the areas that you get the most blood flow, it's easiest to lose fat, even when you're exercising versus not exercising, versus opposite is in the areas where you have no blood flow, which is those areas I was just talking about, which biochemically are the 2B cells or receptor sites. Like it's easier to store there and much harder to get rid of it.
So if somebody's listening to this and they just came back from their doctor, or they've been under the care of their doctor for the last 5 years, and they're listening to you say that it's potentially they could be doing the wrong things or unoptimal things with their doctor, where did you come up with your protocol, and could you just elaborate a little bit more on what makes you the expert here?
Yeah, for sure. My protocols and my knowing and my knowledge is from many lifetimes as an alchemical master.
This series with all these awesome testosterone experts is brought to you by one of my favorite supplements, Super Life Formula. It's been about 5 years since I've been personally using this blend of herbs and plant extracts. I don't take them every single day, but it's always in the house in case I need the extra kick. And if you're looking to rocket launch your testosterone levels, try a loading phase. Do about 3 to 5 days tripling the dose, 3 to 5 days doubling the dose, and then go into the maintenance dose, which is the actual dose from then on. The company also guarantees everything they sell for 60 days on a 30-day supply, so no risk to try. And I've got a huge discount for you, 66% off your first package. Use the code HEALTH101 or find the link in the show notes.
This kind and term and realm and incarnation, whatever you want to call it, 30 years of personal biohacking, of reading the highest levels of training I've trained under some insane masters, both from human performance and of course just mentorship from understanding pharmacology, biochemical individuality and sensitivities and stuff like that. So, I have a very, very deep, scientific knowledge of this stuff. But again, this is for me all experiential. I laugh at people that say, show me a study for that, because I'm like, there's never been a single scientific study that can be replaceable or duplicatable. You can't, if you do a study and I do a study, we're going to get different findings. It's just the way it is, right? So when all these people who stand there and they bow down before science, the cult of science, it's like, fuck science. Like, science is a sham. The only thing that matters is what happens for you. What do you control on this planet? You control one thing and one thing only, and that is your vibration and how you respond to the things that happen around you or to you. And that's all same thing as vibration, right? So it's like, I have learned, right, through the people that I've been blessed to work with and mentor under and teach with, that we're all biochemically unique. We're all N of one. And if you want to optimize the physical avatar body, there's a couple of rules, right? You have to live insulin controlled. And that's, again, regulating your carbohydrate, your starch, your insulin production, right? So you have to control your carbohydrate intake. If you want to live longest and strongest, you have to build muscle. Muscle is the greatest deterrent to the diseases of aging, right? I don't mean jacked bodybuilder, rock star, mutant liver king muscle, but enough muscle to keep your body resisting the force of gravity as you age. Right? So it's like, women get all freaked out about when you say muscle because they're like, oh, I don't want to look like those bodybuilding women. It's like, you can't biochemically or hormonally ever look like that anyway. But if you want to live the longest possible, you have to build muscle because, again, muscle is what is the most metabolically active tissue, and it's the most disease resistant cells on the body. So the more muscle you have, the leaner you will be and the more effective and efficient you will be at burning calories, right? So If you do that, if you build muscle and you live insulin controlled, it's a very good chance that you're going to live longer. Now, obviously, knowing what we talked about in the very beginning of the show, we live in a very contaminated world. You have to be proactive, become the proactive scientist of your own health. So you should also get your internal biomarkers measured through lab work. And if and when, and you are likely to experience some form of hormonal deficiency at some point in time in your life, and it's usually now before 40, where it used to be like in the 50s and older, then seek intervention. Work with a physician, find a person, like me, join my groups, join other people's groups, get into, again, like-minded communities where people are talking about this kind of stuff every single day. And then from there, just develop your own personal program, and if you need a coach or you need a lift, you can buy obviously the books, you can buy the courses and stuff like that. But, for me, I have an article that I wrote on my website last year. It's called The God Stack. And it's kind of where I direct people who are seriously interested in like living the longest and strongest and what I call living fully optimized. Because when they'll say like, dude, I want to look like you, I want to talk like you, I want to feel like you, I want to have your energy. I'm like, okay, well, here's what I take every day. Go. Right? But again, it's always relative to, do you have the core tenets of resistance training, optimized sleep, insulin controlled living, and then of course cardiovascular and resistance training. If you're doing all of those things, then the other things, which is in my God stack, are going to apply much better. But if you don't have the basics done, and you drink too much alcohol, and you eat too much sugar, and you have too much body fat, and you have high levels of systemic and topical inflammation, it's not going to matter.
You have a lot of articles that you've written. Do you also have a YouTube channel?
I do, yeah. So my YouTube channel, so I'm heavily, I think I told Jimmy this, blocked, shadow banned, and suppressed on YouTube. I should probably have a lot more subscribers, let's just put it that way, but they block most of my videos because, again, this is not talking about the things that I talk about, peptides, testosterone, bioregulators. I mean, Big Pharma doesn't want this out there. They don't want people having the power, the personal empowerment and sovereignty of taking ownership of their health. They want people addicted to their pills and seeking out sick care at allopathic physicians. So I've always been, since I had my YouTube channel and my podcast, really like pushed into the corner. We hired a YouTube specialist guy like 5 years ago when I had like 16,000 subscribers. I have over 30,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel, but the guy was literally like, dude, you should just delete your channel right now and start over. Like your shit's invisible. That was like 5 years ago. So it's like, we know, like if Jay Campbell puts something out on any of the social media channels, like the likelihood that you can't see it or that it somehow is invisible is very, very high. But the signal to noise ratio that comes out of my content is amazing, and I've attracted the most amazing people. Clearly, you guys found me. So it's like, I'm able to thankfully at least influence, influencers and influential people to be able to find the work and stuff that I do. So it's, I'm very grateful. I mean, I live my life with gratitude. I know it's a cliche, almost boring thing now, but as you guys know, gratitude works, man.
Yeah. Spreading the wealth of knowledge. Could we elaborate a little bit on bioregulators? You've mentioned them a few times.
So bioregulators are basically the new frontier in health. If you just search bioregulators on Google, you'll probably end up finding me now because my team, my content team and stuff have done some really deep podcasts with Phil Mikens, who's one of the world's leading experts in the field. Dr. Viktor Kavinson of the Kavinson Institute in Russia is the world's foremost, most eminent researcher / scientist on bioregulators. And, just to give you guys the deep and dirty 100,000 foot version and not go too esoteric and get into aliens and stuff, which we easily could, the Russians have been using bioregulators for 100 years. They have literally walled off the patents and the research to the West. Nobody outside of people that I partner with and business people that I'm involved in who are very high level biochemical researchers and engineers and stuff like that, chemists, know anything about bioregulators unless they were blessed to know somebody else before the wall broke that would talk about this research. But truth be told, if you were able to go into Russia and go into a general pharmacy, you would just be able to buy a bioregulator over the counter. Now, I'll give you a story to make it very accessible and easy for people to understand about the power of bioregulators. So peptides are amazing, right? We know peptides, again, fundamentally address the root cause and seek to treat the root cause through repair of natural biological systems and processes. Bioregulators are so profound that they can actually address the specific organ system without any side effects or any kind of deterioration in the body, right? So if you look at like allopathic medicines, big pharma medicines, called Rockefeller medicine, most of them are petroleum distillate manufactured. So what that means is that when they break down in human biological and organ systems, they cause side effects, which you guys know. And that's how they make all their money. They sell more drugs for more side effects and blah, blah, blah. But with bioregulators, they address the actual organ itself or the organ system, and they have no side effects. And you ready for this? None of them are injectable. They're all oral. Now, you can make an injectable form if you want, but you don't need to because they literally break down in the body without side effects. They cause no issues in the liver, no issues in the kidneys, and they address the actual issue. So let me give you an example, and this, guys will relate to this. So if you're a man and you live into your 80s, it's statistically proven that you will have some mild form of prostate cancer, right? We don't understand why the prostate over time increases in size, which is called, BPH, benign prostate hypertrophy. But over time, the male prostate expands, and as we get older, in our 50s, 60s, and 70s, we have to get up in the middle of the night, sometimes 2 times to take a piss, because as the prostate expands, it compresses the urethra and the other canals down there that allow us to have free flow in our urine. What if you could take a bioregulator, and this is the truth, by the way, supplement/product that would go to work specifically shrinking the male prostate as you age? So right now, prostate cancer, prostate hypertrophy, BPH, all of these things are a massive, it's probably $1 trillion global business, but it's definitely in the billions. And, the guys in urology and endocrinology are making tons of money surgically excising male prostates, reducing them. They have the green light procedure. They have all these things. What if you could just take a bioregulator and reduce it naturally, have no side effects, and never have to suffer from prostate issues in your whole life? It's possible. 100% possible. Now take that and talk about the heart. There's actually bioregulators that will regrow damaged heart tissue. So think about the cardiovascular surgery world, right? They're putting in stents. They're putting in all these things. They're giving guys statins and all this bullshit drugs that cause all sorts of other side effects. What if you didn't have to do any of that and you could take a bioregulator to regenerate the heart? Now, granted, you can't be a dumpster fire human who smokes 5 packs of cigarettes a day and eats like shit. But if you take care of yourself and you have a damaged heart or a damaged valve or something like that, you have a genetic heart issue, you can take these bioregulators and completely rebuild and repair the heart tissue. Now, again, all I can say is there is one bioregulator or 2 or 3 that addresses every single organ system and biological system in the human body. Dude, you can take bioregulators to improve your strength of your eyes. You can take a bioregulator. You ready for this? This is great for us, for consciousness guys. It's called Pinealon. That literally opens the third eye. Swear to God in my life. I know people right now, very deep, crazy biohacker people. And this doesn't even go into talking about plant medicine, but they're taking 2 to 3 grams of melatonin, not 200 milligrams. I'm talking 2 to 3 grams of real melatonin combined with Pinealon. And bro, 30 minutes after dosing the melatonin, astral, full blown, leave your body. Watch your body take off. I know people that can astral, right? But this will expedite the process, right? So bioregulators within 1 year, let's just make a prediction without violating some non-disclosures. There will be a lot of people in the world that will know me just because of what the bioregulator, right? So bioregulators will take over, in my opinion, medicine from a quantum side of things within a year. That's how close we are. Now, just to give you guys, some understanding, before the Ukraine, Russia, USA debacle, whatever the hell is really going on over there, and again, I don't care. I have no judgment of it. These things were blocked. You could not get bioregulators in the West. Now, if you go on Amazon and you search bioregulator, they're literally on Amazon over-the-counter supplements. It's insane, but they're not supplements. These are absolutely drugs. Again, when I say drugs, people get, big pharma. These are helpful quantum healing medicines that can absolutely fundamentally treat and cure. Let's just say cure the root cause of what the issue is. But again, not enough people know about them yet.
So is Amazon the place to get them, or where would you send people?
Let's talk off air. I mean, right now you can go on. There's one main company right now called Anti-Aging Systems, which are an offshore pharmacy, and they have a bunch of little international sites, but one of their main sites for bioregulators is Profound Health. Okay, and I have, I don't care about making an affiliate or anything like that, but I have a relationship with them where I'm talking to them right now about doing some other much bigger things. But within the next 6 months, there'll be a lot more information found online where people can find out about like the primary bioregulators you want to look at. There's like 22 that are in manufacturing capacity, meaning scalable manufacturing capacity, that tackle the biggest human organ and biological systems. That will, like, if you use these regularly, it will profoundly alter your physical health. Like, we've written about 3 of them, right? One of them is Ventfort, and Ventfort actually improves blood flow in the body, right? So again, remember what I said, like almost all disease is caused by a lack of blood flow. Like, most people don't know this, hair loss is caused by blood flow restriction to the scalp. It's not caused by DHT or any of this stuff. Yes, there's genetic predisposition, which I have, androgenic alopecia. But if you stop microinflammations and you improve blood flow to the scalp, which, by the way, people ask me this all the time, does that mean, Jay, if I hang upside down in traction, I'll have better hair growth? Yes, you will, 100%, right? But if you want to use, through peptides or bioregulators, enhance what is called angiogenesis, which is the increase in red blood cell tissue to the head or to the scalp, then you want to take various peptides, various adaptogens. There's a lot of ways to do it, but we now know that we can stop hair loss, depending, again, what your genetic level of hair loss or risk is, by increasing red blood cell formation to your scalp. So again, everything is about blood flow. If we maximize and optimize blood flow, we can have healthy cellular networks and tissues, and of course, organ systems and biological systems. So that's what we have to do. And Ventfort is like the really powerful, strong bioregulator that improves blood flow partitioning in the human body. And there's like I said, there's 22 other ones. We've written about Pinealon too. Pinealon's a mind-blowing one. Like I said, I mean, like, you start using that, man, and you want to really enhance your meditative and contemplative and introspective practices. It's insane, dude. Literally insane.
Well, thanks for sharing what's coming down the pipeline. It sounds amazing. But the Russians have been doing it for over a century.
I mean, it just goes to show you, man, that people are talking about, how they say it, that when's the golden age coming? The golden age is here. But you have to be open to it, right? Like, you have to be in a resonant field of resonant vibration, living in abundance. Again, your mindset, right? Neville Goddard, right? Imagine the wish fulfilled, Why think about negative things when you can create positive things? Right. So it's like they're all here, but you got to do a little research. As you know, the technology aspect of society, which is amazing if done and used correctly, but most people are not, Ra and Jimmy, they're not creating, they're consuming. So the difference between, resonance and dissonance is creation versus consumption. Now, we all consume, right? We all want to put on Netflix or whatever it is at night, every now and then to download and watch something, Pulp Fiction or whatever it is, just to get your mind off of it. But you have to balance creation from consumption. And too many people today just consume. They're not creating. They just go from one thing, whether it's porn, Netflix, to the internet, to CNN, to video games, versus people like us making videos, creating content, writing emails. Hopefully you're doing it, at your highest and best capacity, with no expectation or attachment to a perceived outcome. But not everybody can do that. But at the end of the day, if you're creating more than you're consuming, you're going to get out of the matrix. That's my opinion. Service to others. Exactly. Service to creation.
Yeah, because service to self is service to others.
That's right.
But creation, yeah, that's a good verb that explains it. So you're very scientifically minded. At some point there was, and quantum physics is a science, but was there a shift somewhere in your come up where you started paying attention to quantum and vibration frequency? What happened? Where was the bridge for you on that?
So it's a great question. This is an amazing podcast, man. I'm so grateful that we're doing this. I mean, I know it's all over the place, but there's so much to extract. This is going to be like a podcast to clip.
Right. Lots of good reels.
Lots of reels, right? And that's the way people think nowadays, right? They're so distracted, they're being bombarded. But it's an amazing question. So I've always been a seeker. True story, when I was 6, I ran out of the back of Catholic Church. My dad chased me out of the back. He was like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "Away from that cult," right? I was 6, right? So I knew something wasn't right. So obviously I woke up early, and then it just, I'm just, like you, I'm a very exploratory seeker. I've gone down a lot of different paths. I was an agnostic. I was even an atheist at one time. Then it was the aliens, but I really started reading Dr. David Hawkins in my early 30s. I really got into consciousness. And then, dude, honestly, like, I'm not kidding you when I tell you this. I mean, you probably can tell from me just listening to me. I read 10 to 12 books a month. As I started really expanding my meditative practices, I tell people this all the time. I pretty much feel like I can go into the Akashic record at any moment in time and just pull out vast amounts of information that have no relevance to anything I even understand and talk about it and stuff like that. But as you know, anyone can do that by working in the field. And you work in the field by attaining stillness and practicing every single day, a form of stillness. And so, realistically, like right now for me, I'm reading all sorts of different books right now, but I mean, it's really just about understanding that, again, what the Master Yeshua told us is that the kingdom of heaven is within us. And my assumption, my knowing, my awareness is that the kingdom of heaven is the connection to the source frequency through our higher self awareness. And everyone has access to that, but so few people find it because they don't spend time in stillness or silence or, again, meditation, introspection, contemplation, sitting in nature, right? And that's what you have to do. And so once you do that, this information that we're talking about that I know now or that just comes to me is part of that. And, again, to directly answer your question, I went to Peru in 2019. And at that time, my website was the TOTrevolution.com, which stood for Testosterone Optimization Therapy Revolution. And it was the #1 site in the world for people seeking testosterone information. I had 2 books out that were really, amazing #1 books, and they still are. They're #1 books selling of all time on testosterone optimization therapy. But I was in the mountains. I was at Lake Titicaca with my wife and 2 other people. And our guide, who was indigenous, who's Chekwan, he did a ceremony on the lake. And, it wasn't a plant medicine ceremony or anything like that, but, just the Wrigley leaf or whatever of the Altiplano. And I'm not kidding you. And I know for you guys, it's not going to be difficult for you to understand this. I mean, so few people do, but the lake literally came alive and kissed us. And that's what it felt like. And every single one of us, the 4 of us plus the guide, it just spontaneously broke out in tears. Like the couple that was with us, not as spiritually as inclined, but the guy was like fighting it. He was like, "Why am I crying? What is going on?" He's like freaked out. And instantly I knew at that moment, and we were about 6 inches to 8 inches inside the water. We were standing in Lake Titicaca, right on the shores, that I was going to change Jay Campbell, the testosterone optimization guy, to Jay Campbell, the raise your vibration guy. And that it was over and that I didn't care what anybody said, if I was going to lose audience or following or any of that. Like, I remember my team, when I told them this, they were freaked out. They're like, "Bro, you jumped the shark, you've gone full blown woo, like what?" And it was just like, at that point, I knew that, like, if we did not work collectively on raising the frequency, the vibration, the consciousness of humanity, we were going to blow ourselves up again and reboot again. And so I was like, this is all course. I'm spending all my energy and all my time talking to people like Ra of Earth, right? And I literally came back and, after they were freaked out, they were like, "Okay, boss," right? And we changed from TOT Revolution to Jay Campbell, or it was actually somebody was cyber stalking and owned jcampbell.com. I have no idea who it was. True story, a year ago, I finally acquired it. The guy wanted 30 grand for it. I said, "I will give you $2,000, and that will be literally the end of the negotiation forever. Good luck ever attempting to get somebody to pay you $2,000 for jcampbell.com." And the guy gave it up to me. And so now I'm on my website or whatever, but it's just been about consciousness. The health optimization and the stuff that I'm quote unquote an expert in, just went right in line. Cause like you said, when you're aligned internally, the external is simple. And too many people attempt to align the external before they get the internal, right? And you know that. And then the other thing is, and I found this like, and I know you know this, and I'm preaching to the choir, but I attract people now because they know that I will tell them the truth. And that the truth is any physiological dis-ease manifestation that they have is a spiritual amputation first. That the origin of their issue is spiritual. It is a resistance to what is. And it's like, I don't care whether it's cancer or a lack of this or a lack of that, or you're fat, you're inflamed, whatever. Let's find out the spiritual cause. Let's integrate that. Of course, as you know, everyone's traumatized. We're all traumatized. We come out of the birth canal, it's trauma, right? But it's like when we can address the trauma and integrate the trauma, now we can actually heal the physical avatar body. But until you understand that, you're just going to go from one doctor and one diagnosis and one medication and on and on and on and on and on, and you're never going to heal. But once you address the root cause, which again is some form of a trauma, spiritual amputation, or block, then you can actually heal the physical body. And I tell these folks, these amazing, blessed people that I'm, grateful to work with every day, that like, let's do that first. And at first I was like, when I first started doing this 3 years ago, I figured they'd think I was a whack job and blow out. But dude, it's the resonance, right? It's like my higher self to your higher self. And by the way, when I talk to somebody, and I did this with you guys today, I knew this was going to be amazing. I mean, Jimmy knows, like I turned this down and I was like, I can't turn this down. I mean, I'll figure it out. I'll get my laptop. I'll buy a shitty mic. Cause I knew I wasn't gonna have a studio, and I was like, bro, let's do this. But I tell them before I speak to them, it's literally conscious. My higher self is connecting with your higher self for the betterment of both of us and everyone else today. And I say that. So I know that I'm going to connect that, even to people that are, I consider I don't have a good relationship with, like family people, and over time, when you continually affirm that and know it to be true and send that energy field, it's going to work, and you're going to attract the exact person or the exact feeling or the exact vibration, I guess is a better way to say it, of that person to eventually resonate with you.
It's the creation. We're creating that. Last question from me. And thank you for bringing us to this present moment. Is there a future projection for Jay Campbell? Like, I know that you talked about within the next year, but we're looking out 5 to 10 years. Do you have any sort of construct of the direction that you're heading personally?
So where I'm heading personally is becoming more abundant, more spiritual, more loving, more accepting, more allowing. But it's weird because I always struggle with this. Like, I don't really concern myself personally as much as I probably should. I mean, I love and trust myself, and I've worked on that, wholeheartedly for so long now. And thankfully, my beautiful wife, who really pushed me to go down that path when I was 42. But for me, it's about like, how can I help the collective? Like, how can I continue to push information into the ether that can help more and more people? So, I personally see building an absolute, what I call an optimization empire, teaching people to love and trust themselves, teaching them the importance of loving and trusting themselves, and understanding that when they put that first and foremost into their life, that they will then be able to attract and create, a resonant field that also attracts like-minded. If you really wanted to ask me deep down the rabbit hole esoterically, like, where is the world going? I can honestly see, and obviously I'm not Nostradamus in any stretch of the imagination. And again, we create our own reality anyway. We know what we can make, but dude, I can see 2 timelines. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I can see people like us living in resonance, living in let's just call them eco communities, maybe even communes. Let's just call them communes, where we have created a reality where we're not hooked to the metaverse. We're not chipped. We're not V'd. We're not the party line, and we're living abundantly and independently off of that quote unquote technocratic grid or whatever it is. Right? So I can see that happening. And then if you want me to go full blown woo, I can also see the possibility that there is an ascension, that there really are, higher self beings, soul beings given the opportunity to graduate from third dimension. And how that shows up or how we, see that, I think is, best left as a guess. I think ultimately, and this is just my awareness, but we know everything at a soul level, but we choose to forget incarnating into the third dimension, right? The realm of Maya. So in the realm of Maya, if we sit here, and this was a long, difficult road for me to get to this point now, but to attempt to figure everything out is a waste, right? It's literally just creating your resonant field, going out, connecting with other like-minded people like you guys, and then onward and hopefully doing everything in the spirit of, again, creation, giving back, service, without attachment, without expectation. If you do it that way, 90% of the time, 85% of the time, because I know we're human and I know we make errors and I know people do attack us, you're going to get a better outcome. You're going to create a better reality. You're going to create a better environment. You're going to attract more people like you. And so that's the reality you create. I mean, I know you guys, we already talked about consumption, but like if you pay attention to the news, which is all fear porn and negativity and, doom and gloom, then that's what you're going to get. So it's like people have to finally opt out of the duality paradigm. You can't be a Republican or a conservative or a Democrat or a liberal or any of that bullshit. It's nonsense. You have to be a 21st century resonant being. I won't even say human. I would say a resonant being who lives in service to creation and loves and trusts themselves and then teaches the love and trust aspect to everyone else they come into contact with. If you do that, you're going to graduate if there's an opportunity to graduate. And if you don't graduate, you're going to live in the golden age, or you're going to be living in the middle of the golden age and being part of that creation of that timeline.
It's all simple at the end.
It is.
And you just described ascension in one sentence. That last thing is activate others to live in resonance, to live in harmony, and then we're contributing to ascension.
Right.
Jay, this was amazing. You definitely are operating at a very high level, and thank you for sharing what your current gnosis is with us so openly. All right, I think we're done. Jay, it was fun. Enjoy your day. I am trusting you guys all learned a lot from Jay. Thank you for joining us. Next week, we've got Christian Van Camp. He's a fun guy, and he's got a lot of practical things to say about testosterone. Until next time, enjoy your time and space. Take something that you learned today, integrate it into your life, follow, drop a review, and take care.